Well, it's so great to have this guest this week back on the Flower Podcast. And I say back because we recorded an episode early in the pandemic, and I'm really glad to have the opportunity to re-record this episode and really kind of dig a little deeper. And, we were all kind of shell-shocked. But Anthony, welcome to the Flower Podcast.
Thank you so much, Scott. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Well, I know when we talked the last time, we were all kind of in the middle of having so much of our world just shut down. And it's kind of like, we don't know what's going on. We don't know where we're going. It's kind of crazy. And so now that I can't say we're on the other side of it, can I?
Right.
But I feel like things are trying to get back to normal at least. And so, so of course I've got to ask, because I always do, sort of your flower story. How did you get into flowers? I remember some of it from last time, but I know that not everybody has heard your story. So how did you get into the world of flowers?
So flowers for me have been something that I've always loved. I'm a huge fan of color, and, naturally they provide so much color in surrounding areas, landscaping, etc.
Yeah.
So I was doing hair. I was in the beauty industry and loved it. I was doing really well in the industry, and I decided around 10 years that I was ready for something new to kind of shift my, my everyday life, my career. And I knew that it needed to be something with my hands. I couldn't give that up. And I started doing a little bit of research, kind of like what a florist does, how do they, what do they make yearly, et cetera, this, that, and the other thing. And I started reaching out to florists and talking to them. And the more I learned, the more I kind of realized, like, wow, this is something that I'd be interested in. And then I think my first time playing with flowers, going to the market, was life-changing for me.
Yeah.
Here in Los Angeles, we have the LA Flower Market. Just vendors everywhere, flowers everywhere, little trucks with flower, it's so cute. And I was hooked. And my first job as a freelancer, I knew immediately I loved like the hustle and bustle, like picking up these heavy flower buckets with water and like running to like one, and doing everything like go, 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 go. I knew it was for me then. And I love that at the end of the day, I felt like I had like a little bit of a workout, and, my mind was racing with all these cool new things, ideas, and you get to step back and see something made that's so, breathtakingly beautiful. So I'd say I was pretty hooked on it right away.
Wow. I mean, but it's so different. I mean, it's like there's a lot of similarities, but it's so different than being in a beauty-based business, like, doing hair and things like that. It just seems like, wow, what a difference to go from this to that. I mean, was there something that intrigued you always about it? I mean, I'm just curious.
So many people do know, like, they'll say like, oh, wow, what a different career. And for me, I love doing arrangements. Like, you'll see a lot of that stuff on Instagram, just like one simple arrangement.
Sure.
Well, not so simple, but one like beautiful arrangement. And so much of it is the same practices that I learned in my career for hair, color movement, color theory, shape, all of those things are very similar. So when you sit down with a client, you're thinking, you're using your brain the same way almost as an arrangement. Like, what are the best ways to get to, from point A to point B, which is the desired result. And it all has to do with movement, shape, and color. So sitting, in front of that vessel really with flowers in front of me really gives me the opportunity to kind of like have that stylist client relationship. The client just doesn't talk back. They sing and dance, the flowers, but they don't talk back.
I could see that could be a problem, doing hair. You get some talking back going on. Well, I think that's great. I don't think I've ever heard anyone compare the two and see those similarities. I think that's really interesting. Because I mean, I can kind of see, especially when it comes to color, or, you think in the case of hair, your vessel might be the face that you're trying to do your hair around and trying to compliment.
100%.
And that's really, really interesting. And so you said something a minute ago that I kind of wanted to build on. So you went from doing that, you thought about it, you explored it, How did you get your first taste of doing floral?
I went to the flower market and bought just bundles of flowers. At the
Okay,
time, I had no idea what I was shopping for. I shopped for price, to be honest.
sure.
And I bought like a few expensive things, like, some phalaenopsis orchids bunches, and then I think some dahlias at the time were expensive to me. And I kind of just like plopped them all in a vase, right? I did what like everyone I
Yeah,
think that goes to
yeah.
the grocery store and buys flowers does if it's not their career. And I just had them around my apartment and loved the feeling of them, like just being in my space. So I did that weekly then. I started going even 3 times a week some weeks, and then I started
Wow.
arranging them, and I started posting them to my personal Instagram. And I think at that point I had some people reach out asking for like a friend's birthday arrangement, etc. And I knew like, okay, wow, if there's, a little bit of interest here, I must be doing something. So I told myself like, continue education, like keep going with that. So I went to a few different classes and courses all over LA, took some online, and some of them were so great. Some of them were just a little more for terminology and jargon when it comes to flowering. But I started freelancing for a company called Flower Boy Project here in
Okay.
LA. They're in Venice. Love them. Big shout out to them because they're incredible. And they really gave me a freedom to explore the way that I did flowers. And, they would put me on some of these clients and their hotels, and I really got to play and buy and make different things for them. And, from there, I think it was something that I knew like, okay, this is long term for me. This career is like every week getting to try something new is like feeding my soul, and playing with different colors. And I used to call my arrangements back then like little monsters. There would always be like these like reaching out to floral eyeballs. I would always see it in my work. Not so much anymore, thankfully. But it was fun. I had so much interest in like creating these like new, fresh, different arrangements. And so many of you asked what really got me there, but so many little things here and there got me to where I am today. And I think it's all been having an attitude of play.
Wow.
And I think people took notice that really fast because I would have a blast working. It didn't matter how, some of the designers I'd be working for were like so stressed, their flowers didn't come in, like, or they did and they're all, smushed, they're half the length they wanted, whatever the case was. And I would still find a way to be like, let's have a blast with this. Like, let's make some cool shit and like, have a great time. So I think that was it. Getting to freelance for so many people, having fun with it, and like really finding my place in this career, in this industry, is what anchored me now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I can see too. I mean, obviously we're doing this via Zoom, so I can see your face, and it just lights up when you talk about. You can just tell, like it must have hit all these different, creative buttons, and it just, it obviously it lit you up, and you were able to kind of go from there. That's really cool. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like that's great too, because when you have this creative background, even in beauty, and yes, you realize, maybe some terminology was different, but you built on taking classes, taking courses, trying to figure some of that stuff out. When you started freelancing, was there one thing in particular that you really liked about freelancing? Because now you have your own business, right?
Correct.
Okay, so freelancing is a great way, and that's something I would love for you to even talk about. It's a great way to kind of wade into the pool, so to speak, and see if you really like it before taking the big jump.
100%. So yes, I do have my own business now. I very rarely freelance for others. I have a couple floral besties that I'll freelance for,
Sure.
and love that. And then, it really depends on what the project is, who the project is for. But freelancing is one of the most incredible opportunities, I think. And living in LA, living in Southern California, gives me the opportunity to freelance for so many different people,
Oh, I
especially
bet.
when I was coming out. And everyone does something differently. you know, and like even with my own business, I do things so differently than so many people I freelanced with, and I got to try out new things and learn, you know, new ways of doing things and figure out what worked, what didn't work, what I liked, what I didn't like. But my favorite thing, to answer your question about freelancing, was I'm a social person, so meeting new people. But most importantly, I think what I was usually hired for was installations.
Okay.
And installations are like that's my love language, really, when it comes to flowers. Like the bigger, the better, the more eye-catching, the better for me. So I think I'm so fortunate because so many people trusted me right off the bat to produce these installations for them and, you know, do a great job. And I'm sure, you know, events are such like, we have this time to this time,
Right.
and you can't really be going slow on those things.
Yeah.
And
It's about
so
execution.
it's a 100% execution, done well, done efficiently, and, you know, it's going to last. So installations were my number one, my favorite thing. And they just kept me hungry to want to work for someone else until I had my own installations to do. And I could, you know, then create from, you know, sketching it out to day of. And those are still my favorite things to do in my own business, are big installations. So
Well, I
whether
think,
it's for someone else or.
yeah, I think it's so cool because, you know, when it comes to installations, each one's going to be different. Each one, of course, maybe it's the same venue, but it's a different product, usually different kind of feel. And it's such a sense of accomplishment to step back and you see, you know, this work of art, really. And I totally get it. That's really cool. That's neat.
To
Um,
piggyback off that, I
yeah.
actually, it's funny, the people who work with me know this about me, but I'm a little bit of a crier.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Um, just not like a sadness cry, but like the boy who cried flowers.
Yeah.
Specifically after installations and events, I always have tears after when I finish, because I always like to step back and just like see it. And I'm always just overwhelmed with like gratitude, one, that I'm even able to do it, but two, that it just, you know, is such a beautiful piece that came from, you know, the hands of many people and, you
Right.
know, the minds of a few. And it's just so cool.
Hmm. Well, I think that's special that you can connect that way with it. I mean,
Thanks.
well, it comes out in your work. I think. I think when people really connect, I mean, it just screams it. You know, does that make sense?
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, you know, I've never been to the LA market, and I know that some people probably have been, but I'm sure more people haven't than have, right? And so I'm curious, tell us about the LA market. I mean, now with COVID being on this side of whatever it is, whatever, I'd love to hear kind of, you know, what's it like there, and tell us, you know, about this place that sparked such
The magical
creativity.
LA market. um, LA market, yeah. So again, one of the biggest reasons I'm in this now is it truly is incredible. And I think before I get into it a little more, I'd really like to shout out some the vendors that work at the market. And you know, I think what florists and, you know, our clients don't fully understand is that these folks are getting there at midnight, sometimes 10 p.m., you know, and they're greeting us at 5:30 a.m. to around 8 a.m., right? And they're there just working so hard to make sure that, you know, what we get to do for a living is, you know, pleasurable for us. They have our orders, they have the flowers. The flowers are not only, you know, taken care of well, but they're hydrated. They're not just like thrown about, you know, and I think that really sets the tone for the whole space being so magical and incredible, or at least how
Sure.
I view it. Is it starts with the vendors and the people that show up and do the work there. And you know, it's incredible to walk into a place where there's so many vendors too. You know, you walk in to this concrete building and you kind of look like you're in the flower fields. I may be romanticizing that a little bit, but you know what I mean.
I
There's enough
do. I
flowers for the
do.
eyes to see forever. But I also think it's such a great way to build community too, and meet other florists, and you know, see we have the opportunity to go and chat with each other and you know, like, hey, does this pink look pink enough to you? Like, what do you see? You know, just funny
Sure.
things like that. And it just provides for such a space, and it helps me get creative. It's something that I look forward to every morning, is going to the market, and I'll go more often than I need to be honest. I'm sure that people listening that see me at the market know that. They're like, Anthony's here, must be hanging out again.
You're keeping your fingers on the pulse. I mean, somebody's got to do it.
Thank you. I like that way of looking at it. Yeah. Like not making a 28-mile round trip for nothing.
I love that.
So yeah, it really is. It's an incredible place. And I think what's so cool about the LA market is when you're starting out and you don't have a studio yet, they offer studio space. You can rent it daily with a huge cooler. I mean, you can have your large events and rent the space there, and it's just upstairs. So your flowers can just travel right upstairs, get processed, cleaned, arranged, thrown into a cooler until they're ready to go, and life's great.
That's pretty awesome. Because I know, I mean, LA you think of as being such a destination for people doing events and things, or weddings, or companies, corporate type situations. And I could see where that would be a huge, huge asset, just to have space to design in, and cooler space. And that's really cool.
We've had events where the dinner tables are around, you know, one length is 75 feet times 3. That takes up a lot of cooler space. So it's come in handy for us many times.
I guess. Well, I know, I mean, who knew what 2020 was going to look like? Who knew? I mean, who knew? But it's like, you know, you come into this, and you started the year on this incredible high, being the 2020 Mayesh Star. Yeah, I mean, that was pretty cool. And
it's definitely been a light in this year, that's for sure.
So I'd love to hear about the process a little bit, or what you can share. You know, because I feel like, you know, who knows what next year is going to be like. And I mean, who knows? And then I feel like you guys transitioned with these incredible videos. So I'd kind of like to hear all about that.
Yeah, what a trip. That's where we'll start, is what a trip. 2020 has been so much fun doing these Mayesh videos. You know, they truly bring like smiles to my face. That I had an idea for the 12 videos back in November, December, right? Yeah. Everything was mapped out, clean cut. First 3 videos, right on plan. After that, I was kind of like, wow, let's get crazy with this. Like, let's see what we could do. So we started changing it up a little bit. Then COVID hit. And then we had to dramatically change everything up, which, you know, I will say COVID is a very ugly, disgusting thing that's tearing through, you know, the lives of many people. I don't want to roll over that by any means, but you know, it has created this like sense of creativity, not to use that word too many times, but you have to get really, really creative in your business and your ideas, and how are we going to do things. And filming, you know, takes a team of people. Right. And, you know, I don't want to put people at risk for, you know, videos, which we had to find ways to go around that, to, you know, including being tested days before, quarantining until the time being, until the videos, you know, processing everything myself. I didn't have anybody helping this time with the videos. So all the florals were, you know, it was like a very jam-packed couple of days. Sure. But they were some of the most fun videos. And I think they're different. They're going to be a little different. And I think people are going to like them. They're still going to have the same vibe and feel, and I'm still me doing my thing, but we've definitely changed it up a bit. And the next, so we film 3 at a time too. So the next 3 we film are the last ones.
Oh no.
And it's so sad, I know, but it's so exciting because these are the ones that I have some really cool, big plans for. I'm going to keep it a little secretive, but okay. I'm very excited for those. And the next 3 coming out, I'm also really, really excited for. We're a little bit behind, but you know, COVID has been doing its thing to us and our schedules. So just rolling with the punches over here with it. But I would say too, you know, especially to anybody who's interested in being the Mayesh Design Star, you know, go for it. Try it. It's an incredible opportunity. Mayesh is one of the most incredible companies to work with. They make everything so easy, and you know, their staff, Ali, Yvonne, their whole everybody is just to die for. They're all angels, and I adore them. And I'm so thankful that this year has been able to be like a year where I get to really like mesh my business with their business and have fun with it. So yeah, for those interested, try out, because I think it's a fun opportunity for anyone to get to showcase what they want to showcase and do it with such an incredible company.
Right. Well, I feel like I remember from our last chat that that before that process began, you know, you were telling me how this is way out of your comfort zone, or was. Maybe now it's old hat, but like you were just like this non-camera shy kind of guy. And so what happened?
That's, you know, it's so funny. I was just having this conversation with my partner, Fallen, the other half of Boy Who Cried Flowers, and I was terribly shy in front of camera. I don't even really take selfies, so I'm not like really. I'm not used to seeing myself. I'm not used to hearing my voice so much. Fallen will play the videos sometimes, and I'm like, ooh, just cringing at my own voice, you know. And I think after the first time we filmed, I got really comfortable. I started to like, you know, and of course the feedback from people, I get approached at the market often, you know, like, hey, I love your videos. Like, I just wanted to come over and meet you. And, you know, so I see that people resonate with it. I get messages often too about how inspired people are. They're, you know, hairstylists reach out all the time now, and they're like, I want to do floristry. Like, I've been playing with it for a few years. Like, I'm so happy to see someone who went from hair to flowers and transitioned so well. So I think the confidence has been built in not only response, but getting used to really mapping out what it is I want to say, what I want to, you know, educate, what I want to inspire in other people has also helped. It's made me a lot less camera shy, or yeah, it's the best way I can explain it. Is I think it's just more of a comfortability thing that happened with time, especially with feedback. Hearing feedback from people saying you're doing great is like, all right, cool, I can do this then. Like, I'm not shy of doing it. I almost had like imposter syndrome, if you will, in the beginning, absolutely. Where I was like, oh, I'm not cool enough to be doing this. Why are people watching? Like, how did I get this? So
I get it. And it's like a vulnerability too, because, you know, you put it all out there, and then you're like, crickets, you know, like you don't know what's going to happen. And then, you know, you're hoping that everyone likes it as much as you do. But then, you know, so many times, I'm glad you mentioned that imposter syndrome, because so many times we see what we do and we only see the faults. We see the imperfections.
Yes.
And, you know, and it's because, you know, whatever is in our mind, or whatever, you know, you think that, okay, this is what you had in your, you know, mind moving forward as you planned it, and maybe it fell short of that, but that doesn't mean what you did wasn't great. You know, and so, yeah, I could see where feedback would be huge.
Yeah, it's lovely. And, you know, I love to be an inspiration to others. I think that's something that I live for. And to hear how many people are inspired to try something new, you know, and I'm sure we'll talk about sustainability a little bit, but with the chicken wire in some of the centerpieces I've done, that has been mind-blowing to so many. And by no means am I the first or the only, or, you know, florist or designer who chooses to use that, but so many people have used things like foam, or you know, didn't know how to use those vessels per se, are now able to change their work. You know, some of these people have been doing this since the 80s, 70s even, and they're writing me, letting me know like, oh my God, I have never seen this. This is the coolest thing I've seen. And I can't believe I can do something in a low bowl now without, you know, Oasis or floral foam. So it's been it's been cool. That feedback has been great. And I live for it. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, I think too, it's so funny because it's a topic that we've mentioned so many times on the podcast, and so many of our guests, you know, are at the various stages of practicing it. And I think, you know, it's important because, you know, when someone like yourself, like you connect to a certain community, you know, you're in Southern California, there are people down there that, you know, maybe connect to you. They don't connect to someone else somewhere else in the country, really. Like they don't know them, or they maybe just follow them. But when they see somebody that's from, you know, their part of the world doing it, and hey, this is totally doable, then it's like, oh, well, if he can do it, then I can do it. And it's, I don't know, it makes a connection and a relatability that I think is why it's so important for people just to vocalize, you know, how they feel about it. It doesn't matter where you are, and it doesn't matter who you are, because there's always
Yeah.
somebody you can influence, and or at least, you know, shine that, you know, light of, you know,
Yeah,
sanity
start a
to it.
conversation. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, I love that, love that. So speaking of conversation, one of the things, you know, I wanted to ask you about is how, you know, was that a process for you to become more sustainable, or right off, since, I mean, your business, I know, isn't super old, but it's like you've been doing this for several years, and it's like, did you start off that way, or did you kind of, you know,
So I
progress,
started
evolve?
doing flowers. It'll be 4 years, I believe, in this November. And my business is about, it was a year old in May. We celebrated our first year in the middle of, well, we're still within quarantine, but,
Right.
and when I first started doing flowers, I worked for a little shop. I wasn't there long. It was very 80s, very like tight little like bullet roses, and, you know, just dozen of roses with baby breath. Everything was done in foam there. And I started freelancing, and everything was done in foam. And I noticed, like, wow, okay, if I'm making, you know, one of the places I freelanced for, we did something that was about 150 feet foam,
Wow.
solid foam, both sides, and carnations, you know, and it just tripped me out that there was that much foam. I had no idea what it was even at the time. I just knew, like, this is going to fill a dumpster and a half minimally. And it was a problem to me that this was just her one event. So I started doing some research, and I found, you know, some information online about sustainable floristry and all the things that went into that. And when I speak about sustainability, I don't want to, you know, cross over. There's so many things out there that aren't done sustainably in our industry. It's not just foam by any means.
Right.
You know, it's the flowers coming from all over the place, and, you know, being shipped, and et cetera, et cetera. It's the dried, bleached, preserved products as well. So I wasn't fully educated in the beginning of my career, but I knew there was a problem, and I started educating myself immediately on it. And I decided, even with freelancing, that I would let everyone know that I will no longer use foam if I
Oh,
were to be working
really?
for them. Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, people still will try to get me to come on and throw some foam my way, and you know, I'll just explain to them, like, hey, I can do this for you and this, and typically they're totally fine with that. They're
Well, good
a-okay.
for you.
Yeah, it's just something that I don't want my hand, you know, it's not even healthy for myself either to be working with those materials, and there are ways around it. So I
Well,
think,
I'm glad
you
you, I'm
know,
going to jump in. I'm glad you said that, because so many times people think of landfills, they think of plastics, they don't realize the personal health effects. They don't, like, that's not even part of the you know, connections that people make sometimes. So I'm
yeah,
really
the
glad
foam
you
is
said that.
very toxic to us. And I mean, I hope I say this, and I at least 10 designers know what I'm talking about. Putting, you know, together an arch or something that's above you, and you're putting flowers and looking up at it, and that green phone water drips in your eyeball, and you're just like, what is even this in my eye now? Like, I don't want that there. And you could just feel the little particles for like hours in there, you know, like it's just, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I get
I
it.
don't really love doing all that. But yeah, so sustainability has been something that, you know, I'm still working on. You know, we would like to release a merch line, from the Boy Who Cried Flowers. And one of the biggest hangups right now is where to source everything from. I'm talking
Mm,
tags, the t-shirt, where is the cotton source of the t-shirt, et cetera, et cetera. And it creates more lengthy processes, but it's a preference that I think I have and that people will appreciate big time when it finally launches and those things, because then we're not worried about what we're putting on, our bodies or what we're working with, what we're breathing in. And I think something so poignant I learned recently is microplastics showing up even in our body, and working with those microplastics, just wearing clothing with microplastics in it goes into our body. So working with that every day seems like a lot to me, to be breathing in, swallowing, having on my hands, on my clothes, it's getting in everywhere. So yeah, it's something I constantly work on, educating myself and others with as much as I learn. And
one of the things I'd love, if you don't mind addressing, is on this particular topic, and then we'll move on. A lot of times people, I think, are afraid of having to completely, like, it's too much work to completely change their business.
That's a really good point.
You know what I mean? And I know when I met with Hitomi Gilliam back in spring, like February, the end of February, one of the things she was talking about is reduction, like just taking the steps to reduce. And I'm wondering, that's why I was asking earlier, like, how did you start your business? You started that way, or, people want to know what baby steps could they take? I guess that's kind of the thing, to kind of take, what is it they say? Like, how do you eat an elephant? You can one bite at a time or whatever. And I'm totally destroying that.
I love that. No, I think everyone gets it.
Of course, I love elephants, so I hate even talking about that. But, I'm just curious, how to break that down into manageable things where you don't feel so overwhelmed by, like you said, you just brought up like 5 or 6 things that are not really great, sustainable things that are normal practices for people. So what's a good way to kind of approach that, do you think?
I think with so many things, in life, a good way to start is by not judging yourself. Like, we've all made mistakes, we've all done things, we've all been trained a certain way to do things, right? This could be brought to anti-racism work too, is try not to judge, try to find out where you can do the best, right? So you've been doing this for so many years, you realize, wow, this is terrible for our environment, I'm sorry, whoops. Maybe your next arrangement, don't use foam for, or skip the dried, preserved articles unless you've dried them yourself or someone or et cetera. And try to buy locally sourced things. Create a fun game out of it even. You go to the market and say, hey, like, today I want to have at least 30% of my flowers locally sourced, opposed to not thinking about it at all, right? And then the next week you can be like, oh, that was actually really cool and easy. Maybe I'll do 60% this week. And just really try to get that number up every time. And if you're doing 10 arrangements a week with floral foam, or, using just, I see people using a lot of the like plastic trays too, that are supposed to be reusable, but they're going into like clients' homes and then just getting tossed. That could be something too, just one little step with no judgment towards yourself or who you've been or how you've done it is a really great way to move forward and just create a better world for everyone, including yourself. And it's an accomplishment. It's a big accomplishment to change your ways, to be creative, to, you feel great that day. You feel like you've done something. You've done something for the environment and, for the world, which is, who doesn't love that,
What's not to love? Yeah, I completely agree. And I appreciate you saying it that way, because sometimes we just have to move on and, acknowledge it and just move forward, and even the little ways, and making a game out of it's a cool way to do it. And I know sometimes it's like, I think and you talk about sourcing flowers locally. I know I just got done doing another interview to release later, and we were talking about that. We were talking about the scarcity and diversity that brings to your design work. So that way it doesn't look the same every month, that you have the same design, same this, same that, because same flowers are around, and that it gives you the freedom to try new things and try new flowers and make a difference, you know, and support a local farm or support a local grower. And I love that. I really do. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You know, one thing too I'll touch on with that is foraging as well. Foraging is
Hmm.
amazing where I live here in
I
Southern
bet.
California. And there are so many invasive species where it's beneficial for me to go out and literally rip these things up out of the ground
Civic
and,
pruning.
you
We
know,
call it civic
give them,
pruning.
yeah, give them a nice cut, throw them in a bucket, and, you know, and some of these things last 2 weeks in
Yeah.
water. Like, it's incredible, and it's free, and I'm helping out the environment. Didn't ship it anywhere, you know, didn't have to travel. So foraging is another way. You cutting roses from your garden or eucalyptus from a tree down the street, etc., is an incredible way of practice.
Yeah. I love that. Well, one of the things gosh, there's so many things I want to talk about. Yeah, I know you were talking about education a little bit earlier, and I know that you have done things and partnered with Flower School LA,
Yeah.
and I would love to hear kind of more about that and them. And I know I've talked a lot with Calvert up in New York, but I haven't really connected with people there in LA about it yet. And so, you know, what's the difference in New York and LA? Well, there's a lot of differences, but in the, you
Yeah.
know,
So
yeah,
the New York location, I would say, is a bit more established. The LA is a newer location. Um, It's run by Tom Sabinius, who is incredible. I hope you get to meet him one day because he
I
truly is
love that.
just the sweetest soul. Very educated. He's been doing this since he was a child. Um,
Wow.
so he's obviously an incredible teacher, educator, and every student. I run into people all the time who are like, I went to flower school. I heard of you from there, and I'm like, oh my God, how'd you like it? Like, how cool is that place? And everyone has the same, like, they're like, it was amazing. Like, it's a really cool place. And for me, I love teaching there. I met them early on in my career. And I remember when they asked if I would come on as an educator, I was kind of like, oh, this
That's
is
so
on my
cool.
mood board. Like, I'm geeking out. You don't even know. Like, this is dreams and goals of mine that are coming true. And I started off doing some workshops with them, you know, teaching them some more like Boy Who Cried Boy Who Cried Flowers style, where I focus more on color or shape or, you know, the specific vessel we would be using that day. And then it moved into me teaching there once a month, and doing one of their programs called the Intensive Program, which is a week long. It's an amazing program for anybody looking to get into flowers and learn, you know, everything from the ground up, how to process, you know, and it's so educational there. There are so many things that I don't see practiced. When I
Mm.
was freelancing everywhere, I saw a lot of this not practiced. So it's really cool to be, as a designer, as a business owner and a florist, it's cool for me to get to step back into that realm so often and check back into the most important things of the foundation of doing flowers, like proper care, proper cleaning, proper temperature, you know, and how each flower is so different. Um, and I think it's helped me a lot to be able to like step into that role, remind myself, and you know, share what I know with the students there. Um, Unfortunately, due to COVID, I'm not there
I know.
until who knows, but I miss them dearly, and I know that they're doing online courses right now that Cal is doing a lot of. He's great too. Um, but yeah, I obviously love seeing them on Insta and everything because they're always up to cool stuff, even in a pandemic. But yeah, I do look forward to being back there again. I miss them.
Yeah, it's one of the main questions. I won't say main, but it's one of the most often questions I get asked about is, you know, I want to learn, I want to try to find a course that I can take, and, you know, where can I go? And of course, in a city the size of LA, to have that in your own backyard is an incredible asset, an incredible
Yes.
gift. You know, and yes, COVID, you know, threw some bumps in the road there, but I feel like, you know, I know they're starting to open some things in New York, and hopefully LA won't be too far behind all that, but I know that it's hard. But it's just great to hear such great feedback about them, because I know people, you know, it's a great, especially you think about it, an intensive course where you can spend a week and you can take a vacation week and you can go get a crash course and, you know, not spread it out over months, but then, you know, and then, you know, okay, is this something I want to do, or is this something I don't want to
Yeah.
do, or is this something that just sounds really good, or is this something, wow, I'm really passionate about, like you, and it just sort of lit you up. And, you know, it's kind of like, you know, what a great way to do that and to find that out. So
Yeah, they're incredible.
it's all good. Well, one of the things you've mentioned a couple times, and I don't know, there's, and maybe you can help me understand this. So you've mentioned color and color theory, or color, you know, it's your style. And I know that every time I see your work, I can almost, I don't even have to see your name on it, but I can already tell it's you. And it's the way you embrace color and you use color. And there are people that do an incredible job with color, but there's something about the boldness, the brightness, and how you pull these things together. I'd love for you to kind of share with us your ideas, your theory, you know, kind of how do you approach color? Because what you
Yeah.
do is something that doesn't always come naturally to everybody. So I think it would be great.
I notice that when I work with people a lot, and I'll pick the palette and I'll choose, you know, and I'll have them kind of pull what they want, you know, however many stems, and I'll ask questions to kind of see like where their choices lie. How do they make their choices? And what I notice the biggest difference is, people see color very flat. It's either pink, or it's red, or it's yellow, or it's blue, or, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And something that I look for in each flower is, you know, where is the shade of pink lying? Where is the center of that pink? You know, because if there's a brighter pink in the center and everything else is just very loose, I think having that small little touch of purple in a very tiny bloom, or whatever color is in the center of
Right.
that flower, is a very dainty way to have flowers dancing while keeping within that color palette, you know, and blending it. So for me, the way I see colors is on a scale, essentially. Um, I'll put it in numbers from 1 to 10, right? Where is this specific pink lisianthus on that scale for me? Is it in the 1 to 5, 5 to 10 range, you know, et cetera? I'm going to try to find the same blooms within those ranges, if you will. Does
Okay.
that make a little more sense?
Yeah,
So if
yeah, it
I'm
does.
working with, and then on top of that, there's other factors that play into it. You know, what are my contrasting colors to this? Am I going to use those contrasting colors to create more of a pop or more of a show somewhere? Am I going to like dull it down? Am I going to garden it out by having greens? You know, I think something with flowers a lot of people forget is that green with the leaves and et cetera. They add a color into that arrangement
Sure.
as well. And I a lot of the times take green away from my arrangements. You'll notice there isn't much green showing. No stems are really showing unless they're very dainty, etc. Um, and color is like something that I really pick apart in a full scale and bring everything together that kind of goes and doesn't go, so that I can use those at my advantage.
That makes a lot of sense, having seen your work. I mean, it's amazing how you think. I mean, a lot of people like to use greenery to kind of, number one, it's cost effective.
Very,
Um,
yes.
number two, it adds texture a lot of times, and it adds some tonal qualities. You know, dark green, light green, chartreuse green, all these things. But it also kind of creates, I don't know if I know the right word to say. I'm going to say noise. It adds a noise to the arrangement. And I can see where by removing that, you add a purity to the color, or you allow the colors to not be inhibited by this noise that's going on around it.
That's
Um,
beautiful wording for it. Yes.
yeah, I mean, it's just so incredible. Do you typically, like when you do weddings and things, how do you approach color with brides and things? Because I know so many times, like, they come with their palette preconceived, and it's kind
Yes.
of like, and you know, I hear it all the time. The same thing, you know, it's, you know, blush, you know, green, pink, whatever, you know, white. It's all the same palette. And maybe you have that same issue, but do you ever have that opportunity? And if so, how do you kind of persuade them to embrace this fabulous world of color?
I'm going to relate to this in an event style because I'm so fortunate. Every bride that has reached out has been a big fan of the work. And they typically send my work to me, and
Really?
they're so good. They send the coolest stuff. These people out here are so cool that they can like throw these amazing mood boards together that look like they'll even take the color palettes from my work and create like, you know, color bars out of it. And it's just so flattering to me because they
Sure.
see what I see then. So our weddings, we don't do a lot of weddings. It's not our primary thing. We send a lot of weddings to other florists
Okay.
when they have those, you know, that pink, peach, eucalyptus, green, sage, you know, situation. Um, I don't even try to talk them out because it's not, you know, there's so much business out there and there's so many florists that can give you you know, your perfect dream wedding. And if it doesn't mesh with my style, then I'll let them know like, this is very dreamy and beautiful. I think this is a better florist for that dreamy, beautiful vibe you want. Love your stuff, etc. But the brides we do stick with are and so much love to y'all for having to switch your venues and everything this year. But the brides we do tend to get are really artistic. They want color. I had this really cool wedding coming up. Who knows when now? But so much color going on these tables. They're artists. One's a photographer and set designer, and the other one's a teacher. So they have given us full creative scale. I mean, even they've had us booked for 2 years now, and it's just incredible because every couple of months too, as we check in, you know, especially with COVID going on, like how are things looking? We get to play with the color palette a little more. You know, I've thrown out to her like, hey, I'm really inspired by this right now. Like, you know, how do you feel about this on your wedding tables? And it's just so fun that we have that connection with our clients and so many of our clients outside of weddings here too. But we do get events sometimes where they would like to discuss like, hey, this is a little whites and greens. I love whites and greens. I think it's a stunning combination. But it can look too classic sometimes for me and my style. So I get to play things up like that. Like when I get to work with these classic color palettes, I'll kind of exaggerate them with different things. You know, I'll get really interesting greens that have, you know, like maybe some passion flower. I love to drape things, wrap vines, and, you know, make it a little more interesting in other areas then for the client to have exactly what they want and, you know, for it to be my art at the same time. So yeah, that's to answer that question is usually how it goes. I don't usually talk people into another direction unless I see the openness from them for that. I'll usually refer them elsewhere. But it's always, like I said, it's always so fun talking to the clients who hit us up because I feel like they really get the art already and get what I'm trying to do with color, etc. And they know not to, you know, try to steer me away from that because probably just won't be, you know, for the best.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's important because, you know, you end up not in a situation that kind of causes you to get burnt out or to frustrate you because you're having to work in a palette or with products that you don't typically, you know, enjoy working. They end up being matched better with somebody who does. And honestly, that takes a lot of confidence to be able to do that, to say, you know what, it's not you, it's me. and this person would be so much better, you know. And I'm sure at first some people will be like, well, you know, we really wanted you to do it. And it's kind of like, yeah, but you know, if you looked at my work, you would know that's not the kind of work that I do.
Yeah,
and so,
exactly.
you know, and I get it. I do get it. And it's a little awkward and probably delicate conversation at the forefront, but it probably saves you so much pain and agony down the road for everybody.
So far, everyone has been like, oh my God, that's amazing. I didn't even think of that. Like, whoa, I'm obsessed with their work, whoever I send them to. And it's just, you know, right off the end, they're like, thank you so much. We're so appreciative. It creates for a better conversation. I'm a sharer too. I love sharing. it's a big part of my life. It's my form of tithing, if you will.
Sure.
You know, the universe feeds me, I feed it. And when I can share, I love to give what I can. And if it's a wedding that doesn't seem to fit, then I love to give it, love to share it.
And I love that. I love that. Gosh, there's so many things here. I feel like one of the things that I wanted to really kind of break down, I know our time is kind of winding down here a little bit. I always like to ask for advice questions and kind of, you know, either something that's meant a lot to you or something that you feel like you'd really like to pass on to maybe someone in a new business, just whatever you'd like to share.
I've got something for you, and I don't know how this is gonna like come up, but something resonated so strongly with me, and it was an image of and they were children, and there was a little kid in first place holding up a first place ribbon, crying, and there was a kid in third place on a lower platform holding up his third place ribbon. It was like, yes, like just happier than, I mean, this is the happiest photo of someone I've ever seen, right? And like I said, the kid in first place on the higher pedestal, kid in third place. First place was crying, and you know, it hit me like a bag of bricks, this meme or visual, and it really showed me like, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, no matter who's doing what, it's all about perspective and holding that perspective. You know, even in third place, even in no place, you're as big of a winner, and you could celebrate that win as much as you'd like and as hard as you'd like. You don't have to be in first place. You don't have to be the top spot, because it's just a perspective. You know, that kid in first place might be crying and may not be as happy as the one who won third place. You know, so there's that. And I think it goes along to what we talked about last time. It's something I always like to leave people with is comparisons are so ugly sometimes. I hate to use that word ugly, but they are just so hard on our souls. So, you know, just wake up every day being the best you can be, and it'll show in your work, it'll show in your walk, it'll show, you know, it'll just show up all over in life for you. And it'll just bring so much happiness, non-comparisons, and not comparing yourself or your work or, you know, what you have or don't have to other people is a really beautiful, clean way to, you know, share love for yourself.
Absolutely. I know you mentioned it earlier I don't remember exactly where, but you mentioned this word that I remember from our last conversation, and that was gratitude. And you mentioned earlier today, and it's like just being, sometimes it's just an exercise that we need to do for ourselves, is find the place to find that gratitude, whether it's the third place or the first place. I mean, I love that example. And sometimes we just get out of habit. We get lazy maybe, and, you know, or something happens really bad, especially you think with, you know, like COVID and all this stuff that's been going on, you know, it's like, it's so easy to get discouraged, and we forget to do that.
Yeah.
And you inspired me last time so much, because I just remember you saying that, and I thought, you know, it's something we need to exercise.
It's like
every
hygiene.
Day. Yes.
You got to take care of your hygiene every day. You got to take care of your gratitude every day. All of that. And you could do it by saying just gratefulness in the shower is a great way to remember. Hygiene and gratitude go hand in hand.
That's right. You know, and G comes before the H. So there you go. Yeah. They're right together in the alphabet too. So there you go.
I love that.
Well, Anthony, thank you so much for being on the Flower Podcast. And it's been such a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. This is another dream come true. So I appreciate that I'm on here, and I hope that you and everyone else listening got some valuable little tidbits of some sort. And thanks again for having me.